Welcome to the Western region for the compliance updates in September 2022. Okay, in Arizona. So Arizona updated medical and adult use cannabis regulations effective September 2022. The updated medical rules can be found here. A color-coded report showing the medical rule changes has been uploaded into ProCanna as well for reference. The updated adult use rules can be found right here as well, and the updated color-coded is also in ProCanna if you use that software. And letting you know ProCanna will update that the guide as well, but there's so much in here, and I do love like all of these little table of contents happening here and how you can jump right to it. I love when they do that. So yeah, Arizona updating regulations, just letting you know. There's way too much to dive into to give you a full synopsis on that. That could be a training in itself. So definitely go take a look. All right, let's hop over to California. California, SB-1326, Cannabis Interstate Agreements. How exciting. So, we are pleased to report that the CDA, California Distribution Association, co-sponsored Bill SB 1326, which passed with a 2/3 vote on the Assembly floor on Monday and today on the Senate floor. Now the bill heads to the governor's desk for consideration. This bill will allow the governor to enter into multi-state agreements with other states with adult and or medical cannabis regulatory programs to allow for interstate commerce between two or more commercial cannabis markets. Creating a structure to develop lawful interstate agreements now rather than potentially waiting for years for federal legalization will bolster California's struggling cannabis industry in a time of near extinction for many small and legacy businesses, while benefiting consumers and medical patients who need access to high-quality cannabis products. There is and always has been national demand for high-quality cannabis from California, and this bill creates a legal pathway to meet that demand. We are truly excited about the future market expansion potential this bill brings, per the CDA. CDA worked hard hand in hand with rural county representatives of California, RCRC, and Senator Caballo's office to develop the bill text to a point where there was no registered opposition to the bill. The outcome is a huge step towards applying pressure on the federal government and the first of several steps towards bringing California's finest legally to the rest of the country. Congratulations, team, on the success for passing SB 1326 this legislative season. How exciting. Great work, guys. More out of California. Notice of modifications, proposed text standard cannabinoid test method, and SOP regulations. So, again, this is an update from ProCanna. Notice of modification to proposed text for standard cannabinoid test methods and standardized operating procedure regulations. DCC is providing notice to the public of modifications to the proposed regulatory action to adopt regulations to implement and make specific Business and Professional Code Section 26100 subsection F2 pertaining to the establishment of a standard cannabinoid test method, including standardized operating procedures that shall be utilized by all licensed testing laboratories in California. These modifications provide changes to the text of regulations previously noticed to the public on June 17, 2022. Through the proposed regulations, the DCC aims to ensure all licensed laboratories are using the same standardized cannabinoid test method, which will ensure the consumers receive accurate and consistent information regarding the cannabinoid content of cannabis and cannabis products they use or consume. View the notice of the modifications to proposed text and modified text of regulations here. Notice of modifications to propose text of regulations, standards, cannabinoid test methods, and standardized operating procedures. Yeah, all this fun stuff. The DCC is currently accepting comments on modifications to the proposed text of regulations. Any interested person or interested person's authorized representative may submit written comments relevant to the proposed regulatory action to the DCC. Please limit your comments to the modifications to the text. All comments must be received by 5 p.m. on September 16th. They created a public comment template, which is absolutely awesome. I love templates. And then you can also contact public comment at cannabis.ca.gov. All right, moving on over to this MJ Biz article. So dozens of California cities, counties could okay new recreational cannabis markets. More than 24 California cities and counties could establish new recreational cannabis markets through ballot measures in November, creating up to 250 retail licenses and countless other business opportunities for plant touching and ancillary companies. The voter-led ballot drives would eventually help minimize wide gaps in the consumer accessibility, as a solid majority of cities and counties across the state ban commercial cannabis operations. So yeah, just some things here. If cannabis tax measures pass as expected in the state's most populous counties, LA County could approve up to 25 stores. Sacramento County could okay 10 to 20 cannabis stores. San Diego, which is a big deal because you pretty much get taxed anytime you go through San Diego, could license 20 to 40 retailers, which is so great. So yeah, a lot of really great things happening there, and happy to see it. It's very much needed. And more on what's happening. These cannabis bills are headed for the California Governor Gavin Newsom's desk. So already in 2022, Governor Gavin Newsom's signature has ushered in significant change for California cannabis industry, and that's before another dozen bills headed to his desk as the legislative session ends. The session began in January with a clear priority: tax reform. Amid more than a dozen bills introduced were a handful of proposals focused explicitly on taxes, from eliminating the cultivation tax to reducing the excise tax, as Cannabis Wire reported. Then in May came Newsom's own proposal by budget, followed by a compromise with lawmakers in June, and by July it was law. The legislative session wrapping up on August 31st. The question is, which of the cannabis laws heading to Newsom's desk will he sign? He has until the end of September to decide. All right, in Montana, just some rulemaking filing. So pertaining to waste, comments were received and then withdrawn pertaining to the creation of additional canopy license tiers to cannabis cultivators. After receiving public comment on the rulemaking proposal notice, the department is withdrawing this regulation code from consideration. Pertaining to the authorization of cannabis dispensary customer loyalty programs, after receiving comment from the public and the Economic Affairs Interim Committee on the rulemaking proposal notice, the department is withdrawing this regulatory code from this consideration as well. All right, and then now on over to Nevada. So notice of intent to accept applications for cannabis consumption lounges. Super exciting stuff here. Also, they also did a webinar as well for applying for a consumption lounge, which, you know, I just absolutely love when they go in depth and tell you everything you need to know about the licensing and application process. It's just so important. But let's look at this MJ Biz article from Nevada, just talking about Vegas gives thumbs up for cannabis consumption lounges. So cannabis consumption lounges were approved in Las Vegas and Clark County, a boon for the industry in the area's crucial tourism sector. The city council voted 5-1 on Wednesday to deny a motion by member Victoria Seaman to prohibit such businesses, clearing the way for regulation according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. The approval comes about 2 months after Nevada regulators finalized rules to open up state's cannabis market to an estimated 60 to 65 cannabis consumption lounges. The city has automatically opted into the consumption lounge licensing process, the Review-Journal reported, because it hadn't responded to a September memo from the State Cannabis Compliance Board. But Wednesday's vote gave Las Vegas a chance to reject cannabis consumption lounges. The lounges, which can't sell alcohol, must be located in unincorporated areas of the city and Clark County. Good work, Nevada. And then just the last update for Nevada, there is a Cannabis Advisory Commission happening on October 4th. All right, and in New Mexico, real quick, so cannabis sales repeat over 40 million in August. So the Cannabis Control Division of the Regulation and Licensing Department on Wednesday announced that during the month of August, Licensed retailers around the state sold over 40 million in adult use and medical cannabis combined. In August, adult use cannabis sales topped over 24 million. And here's them listing out all of their sales. I'd love to know how many retailers are in each location to kind of get a better idea of how much they're doing per month as a retailer. But congratulations, New Mexico. That's exciting stuff. Even though you're hurting the Colorado market. But hey, doesn't matter. More accessibility. All right. Shifting over to Oregon. We got quite a few happening out of Oregon. Okay, so first, this is just a information bulletin about harvest season prep. So they're providing the following licenses, and this information bulletin is part of LLCC's compliance education. It's important that you read and understand it. This bulletin does not supersede any LLCC rule. So an applicant for a work permit is allowed to work for an LLCC recreational cannabis license if the applicant meets the conditions outlined below. The applicant has taken the cannabis worker permit test. The applicant has submitted a cannabis worker permit application in the NIC/OLCC system prior to working for a licensed LLCC recreational cannabis business. Application is still pending process by LLCC staff, i.e. not yet approved or denied. Temporary employees must be removed from an employee list in Metric when they are no longer working for the license. And then some more information on how to record harvest in Metric can be found at their wiki. So let me this wiki-or-metric.com/harvest. All activity must be recorded in Metric before 8 a.m. the following calendar day. So you do not have like a 3-day grace period like you do in other states. Where was I? Okay. Compliance Bulletin CE 2018-06 outlines the outdoor harvest must be scheduled in Metric before 9 a.m. on the day of the harvest. If you don't see the harvest schedule option, your permission may not be turned on. If a scheduled harvest does not happen, go back to the calendar screen and delete it within 24 hours of the scheduled day. The harvest notification is in addition to recording the actual harvest when it occurs. Also, testing rules may have recent updates. You can learn more at the OHA website. For any harvest after July 1st, 2022, batch sizes for testing of usable cannabis are now up to 50 pounds. Batches must come from the same harvest lot, which has been changed to mean plants harvested within a 7-day period. Delta 8 THC and mycotoxin testing are now required compliance tests. And Compliance Bulletin CE 2021-03 has examples of common testing errors and ways to minimize issues. The majority of issues can be corrected without OLCC intervention if detected before the package is transferred in the lab. Guidance from the OLCC, what licenses can do if threatened by wildfire. So again, they just released this information bulletin for you all. So extreme weather conditions have Oregon wildfire officials focus on wildfire suppression activity across the state, and electrical utilities are cutting off power in high-risk areas of Oregon to reduce the possibility of wildfires starting as a result of downed transmission lines. It's a good idea for OLCC cannabis licenses that may be in the path of wildfire and have received an evacuation notice or face the prospect of power going out at the location of their license activity to create an evacuation plan if they don't already have one in place. Licensees can refer to the guidance in the OLCC Natural Disaster Guidance Bulletin on what steps to take to get ready and go. Right now, licenses in high-risk wildfire areas should identify another licensee that Metric Track products can be transferred to prior to finding themselves in a sudden dangerous situation. Licensees that find themselves in an emergency level 3 go now situation should prioritize their personal safety over the cannabis inventory and immediately evacuate from their location. You can find links to additional resources for dealing with natural disasters at the OLCC website. And then if you have any questions, make sure to contact marijuana at Oregon.gov. Also, Task Force on Cannabis-Derived Intoxicants and Illegal Cannabis Production, Cannabinoid Subcommittee is on Tuesday, September 27th. Take a look at their agenda real quick. So review THC limits for hemp items sold to minors. Review THC limits for hemp items sold to adults. Artificially derived cannabinoids are currently not allowed for sale in the general public. Discuss recommendations for full task force as they relate to considerations. OLCC notice of proposed rulemaking marijuana license moratorium. So what? This amends the rules to implement legislative related to the marijuana license moratorium, House Bill 4016. Why? The 2022 Oregon legislature passed House Bill 4016, of which Section 1 imposes a moratorium on new producer, processor, wholesaler, and retailer applications. The legislation requires that OLCC inactivate new applications received after January 1st, 2022 for these license types. For applications received on or before January 1st, 2022, applicants must timely submit a land use compatibility statement, and applicants may not change location or ownership of these applications. This section of House Bill 4016 became effective upon passage, which requires OLCC to pass temporary rules to implement the license moratorium and to bring current rule language into alignment with the legislation. Upon approval from the Commission, these rules will become permanent. The moratorium is in effect until March 31st, 2022. Last day for public comment is October 15th, 2022. Email olcc.rulemaking@oregon.gov. All right, and then some just additional articles about prices and things happening in Oregon. So Oregon cannabis prices swing from pandemic peaks to record lows. In August 2022, the state's adult use cannabis flower prices hit an all-time low at retail and remained near an all-time low at wholesale, displaying no indication for a meaningful comeback anytime soon. The median retail price for dried flower was $118 per ounce last month, a 27% decrease from $161 per ounce that was commanded during the pandemic. Peaks in September 2020. According to the data from the OLCC, the industry's falling prices have also taken a toll on overall sales figures, with licensed retailers recording $633.8 million in adult sales from January through August 2022. That's more than a 15% decrease from the same 8-month period in 2021. According to OLCC's most recent biannual report on supply and demand released in February 2021, in the middle of the upward price trend from the pandemic, the state has experienced a 78% increase in production, while the amount of cannabis sold increased by 150% since the previous 2019 reporting period. This comparative large increase in consumption helped boost demands from 50% of a total annual supply to 65%. And Oregon cannabis price swings from pandemic peaks to record lows. Just crazy. We're seeing something similar here in Colorado too. It's really unfortunate. I mean, more accessibility to the people, better price point. Don't get me wrong. It's just thin margins and you got to run a tight ship. All right. And then just the last one out of Oregon, administrative rule update, just talking about wine and Oregon bottle bill, but the transfer of marijuana items between state and tribal licenses. Administrative order enables the governor to enter into an agreement with the government body of a federal recognized Indian tribe for the purpose of cross-jurisdictional coordination and enforcement of cannabis-related business license to conduct business on tribal trust land by the governing body of the federal recognized Indian tribe. All right, and then update over in Washington. And these are our last updates for today in the Western region. So by this message, the agency is reminding cannabis businesses of the prohibition of the sort of laboratory conversions involved in a case about synthetically derived THC from hemp. The board this week approved a comprehensive settlement of an enforcement case with Raymond-based processor Unicorn Brands LLC. The agreement ensures the company will not resume converting hemp into THC and bring an end to a lengthy and complex investigation. Another bulletin, minors present on cannabis production processor premises, allowance extended through December 31st, 2022. The minors present on premises to support families impacted by school closures allowance that was set to expire on September 30th has been extended through December 31st, 2022. As it has from the beginning, this allowance applies only to wholesale producers and processors. So the board withdrew a pre-proposal statement of inquiry CR-101 to consider creating new, amending, and repealing existing rule sections as necessary to identify and further define terms, including but not limited to additives, solvents, ingredients, compounds, or concentrates used in the production or processing of cannabis products. All right, and last update out of Washington. So Washington's draft cannabis social equity licensing rule, again from Harris-Bricken. Following Washington's creation of the Social Equity in Cannabis Task Force during the 2020 legislative session, the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Control Board, LCB, approved draft social equity licensing rules for cannabis licenses on August 3rd. The proposed rules would add Section 570 Social Equity in Cannabis Program to Washington's Annotated Code, WAC, Title 314-55. The rule is aimed at granting retail cannabis licensing opportunities to people who have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs and can go into effect as early as September 28th. The rule contained eligibility criteria and application scoring criteria, each attempting to identify the most disproportionately affected and ensure they receive the highest chance of being approved. Unfortunately, certain elements of the rule created cause of concern or at least confusion. As discussed below, my concern is that if unchanged, parts of the rule are likely to harm the very people it is intended to benefit. Yeah, good article out of Harris-Bricken, but always the challenges with these social equity programs. I'm not too sure why we can't get it right, but hopefully we can figure it out. Anyways, that is the compliance update for the Western region in September 2022.